rotate. All right, it is not 9:30 on a Thursday night, but it is Thursday, and you heard that music, and it's not Rip Radio Network, but I'm here anyway, so welcome to a special episode of Chip Chat. I'm Chip. Today, we're going to do something a little bit different. A lot of you know that we talk about the news, we talk about comedy, we talk about all kinds of things on our show, but some of you probably know that I am also a curler, which is a strange condition to have. There's a few thousand of us in the country who also suffer the same affliction. I have with me two of the best curlers I have ever known joining me on this show because what we want to talk about is something that is going on in the curling world. Now, if you are following along on Twitter or social media or stuff, you may have caught a little glimpse of this, which may not make a whole lot of sense. And we are here to try to make it make sense. Joining me today is, well, we'll let them introduce themselves. Dean, who are you? All right. So the real expert here. And you have a show as well. Fantastic. Yes, it's a great show and a great name for a show. I can't tell you how funny I think that is as a Jewish curler. I think that's hilarious. Excellent. Tell her to give me a call. We'd love to get her on the show. All right. Stacy, who are you? You are an Olympic level warm roomer, though. So I think you should get some credit for that. There you go. Excellent. All right. So all of us here are, let's just say, pro curling. And so if anybody wants to hear a contrary argument to should there be more curling, you're not going to hear it here. So let's get right into this. There is a bit of a dust up going on between, let's call them governing bodies of the sport of curling. There's regional governing bodies, and then there's the national governing body, which Dean you work for. So can you explain to us from USA Curling's perspective what all is really going on? So if I've got my own club of a paper club, or even if it's we're borrowing ice on somebody else's ice or whatever, and we don't want to join the GNCC, we also don't want to join the national organization. There's no problem. We're not impacting that 95% threshold for GNCC, and we're not really having anything. We are just operating completely autonomously. I don't think anybody's accused you of that. So can I ask a couple of clarifying questions? Uh, how old or when was the national organization founded? Well, the reason I asked that is exactly what you're talking about. So basically, the idea is at the time that the national governing body was forming up, there was a reason for doing that, that there were regional associations, and they said, look, we need to have some bit of standardization. And also, if we do want to have a path to a national team, national playdowns, national Olympic ambitions, all of those kind of things, we do have to have some sort of national structure. And so that the regional associations basically created, or at least incentivized the creation thereof, of USA Curling. Is that more or less right? Well, and there's also a exactly, and there's a governance aspect to it too. Like supposing that there weren't the regional uh, bodies already in place, if you did go to an at-large thing where every club could vote, you would probably have to structure the board by geographic region to some extent to make sure that there was some representation. In the same way that, say, like Congress doesn't just go by population and let there be all the people from California or whatever. So um, I understand how those two piggyback together. Let me ask another question that sort of follow on to that. What would you say is that USA Curling does primarily for the regular everyday curlers like people like Stacy and myself? Well, we could fix that. We'd love to invite you to Potomac to curl with us. It's a pretty good list. I mean, it's a good list. And so to be clear, as a regular average curler, having the governing body existing, having the visibility, it helps me explain what it is I'm doing. People are like, where do you go on those Monday nights? Well, I'm going to throw rocks on the ice. And that doesn't make any sense. But, and so it does provide the visibility. I think it also helps in terms of, like you mentioned, with standardization a little bit, with instructor methods, trainings, and ice obviously needs to be keen everywhere, as keen as we can get it. So I think I appreciate all of that. Stacy, yeah, there's also, I think, maybe a competing story about USA Curling support for the Schuster rink in 2018, but we could get that. It's a whole nother show. Stacy, you are an everyday average curler, but you're not just an average curler because you're a very active club member, and as you mentioned, you won Volunteer of the Year. So does what Dean's talking about sort of square with your experience as a curler in the way that USA Curling supports you? The upper Midwest, we can say. I am not Corey Drop. Okay. To be fair, we managed it on our own. Got in touch with the Today Show and our local NBC affiliate, and it's fine. The Today Show is kind of like hardly anybody's heard of it. So Dean, I don't know if you know this, but we are here in Washington. We're pretty good at managing media attention. It's a thing we're great at. Yeah, let so I think there's a few more things. What would you say, Stacy? That Yeah, sure, absolutely. Well, I think we can cycle back to that. In Yeah, but I want to know also, like, this is I know I have a personal interest in it, but I'm not being personal interest. This is just intrepid reporter question time. But for Stacy, as a more active member of the club, certainly than I am, how did this feel like today, yesterday, this week? Like, you know, we saw all of a sudden we got these emails and it didn't feel great. And how has it felt for you? Well, that's what it looked like. Well, it outlines the way that we can rejoin, but it doesn't say. I mean, we're still current? I know we're still current, but come the next cycle through, we won't be unless we act, which is different from the previous 10 years that I have been curling, where it's just I pay my dues and that's that. Uh, well, we got that today actually. So we understand that there's a way to bridge the gap. Yeah, are we unsanctioned? Are we somehow out of the? Yeah. We appreciate we definitely appreciate the participation in trying to clear this up. For example, coming on this show, but and I understand that, like I said, I mentioned again, we are from Washington, so we do understand that sometimes the thing that you're trying to explain is more complicated than can fit on a bumper sticker. And then when you go to try to explain it, people tune you out, or they can't understand it, or they blame Obama or whatever. Like we know that story. But I will say, for the people, Potomac is not a good example of a club that is on the margins in terms of finances, or for where the members are on the margins in terms of finances. We're talking about DC. We're talking about very affluent, very well educated community. But there are curling clubs, especially arena clubs, especially paper clubs, where they maybe only get 5 6 weeks of curling, and this increase in costs, or what they are paying towards USA Curling doesn't exactly benefit them very much, except from that visibility thing that you were talking about. And it can raise the price per week of their curling experience by 20% or something like that. It's a lot. It could be a lot. And I know that $35 does not seem like a lot, but it could be a lot depending on your circumstances, and spread out over 5 weeks, $7 more for a $40 game. That's already getting like an expensive night. You get what I'm saying? So um, we are feeling some of that. We are hearing a lot of that. I got to tell you, Stacy, what do you think that this looks like to the? We are not a small club. We're not Utica, But what does this look like to the smaller clubs, to our friends up in Merrimack, to our friends in Bucks? What is this looking like to them? I'm thinking of two sheet clubs, and. I mean, we found out there was a break point. We found out there was a break point with Breakfast League about how expensive we could make Breakfast League and still get people to casually show up. So, absent any real evidence of that, I can't speak to that particular thing. But I will tell you that that does not feel like that makes a tremendous amount of sense of why two organizations that are ostensibly pulling in the same direction towards expanding curling as a whole would do anything other than that. By contrast, or for example, maybe I'm a member of several uh, public radio stations that I cannot pick up with a receiver where I live, or even within hundreds of miles of me. But because I support what they're doing, and so I maintain a membership there, much like your membership with the GNCC. It's about growing public radio in my case, or in your case, it's about growing curling. I can't. But what I'm saying is, I have never heard once anything approximating that level of communication. But you understand what I'm saying? Like, that strains credulity a little bit, because why would I advocate for you not to join an organization that I'm a member of as a board member. That I'm not saying that didn't happen. I'm saying that's hard to believe. It seems crazy. It seems crazy. Well, no, but they must have their reasons. And and I think the answer is the insurance. If you're talking about a difference of $34 versus 22, and the insurance is the main driver of why you would join such a thing, you got to make a financial choice. I cannot blame a small club for making that choice. And furthermore, not to be too individualistic about it, but there does get to be this point where it says, shouldn't the clubs be the one to decide and not have the heavy hand of the national organization or the heavy hand of the regional organization forcing them? Yeah, except that it would dilute their power and participation a little bit, because as an at-large member, they're not going to be represented in that board. All right, well, let's get let's get to the bylaws thing, because that is a question. Can you tell us? Can you give us the specific line in the bylaws? Because this again, intrepid reporter asking this question. Can you get us the piece of U.S. curling code section such and such, blah blah blah? You know how it is. While you're working, we've had a number of people ask us this. Is it a bylaw or a policy? Well, I asked that. As I mentioned, we're an overeducated club of a bunch of nerds. They've got a lot of effort into parsing the detailed language. So the faster you can get us to the line so that we can get these nerds something to study, the better off we are. Yeah, including the GNCC. So can I want to sort of wind towards resolution here, because ultimately I think it's clear, the three of us, and I think, no, I don't think so. That's what I'm saying. What I'm getting at here is that the three of us share obviously this goal of growing curling and having it be more open, competitive, available, and easily accessible, and as common as basketball or whatever. So, and I don't think that there is a lot of actual personal disagreement or animosity towards that goal. So the question is, what could we do to resolve this? And I want to pose three possible options towards you. Now, granted, I am layperson. No, I know, but I just want to talk these out and sort of, get these ideas out into the ether, because if we are going to publish this and we're out here trying to sort of maybe calm some tensions down and get things a little bit, level. One of the things that occurred to me is, could we lower the threshold of participation of a region to a number that would be relatively organically achievable, such as if you take a region that has 100 clubs in it for round numbers, and you've got 20 to 30 of them, let's say 30, that are competitive at a club national level that would be interested in staying in USA curling no matter what, come hell or high water, willing to pay all the sets of dues or whatever, they would do it. If you move that threshold down to that level, there's no effort to force the region to enforce the rules of USA curling, and it's also not going to create as much friction. That's one idea. Another idea is if the amount of money that a region would have paid into USA curling that is no longer going to be such because they do not want to be the enforcer for the national organization, if that amount of money could be raised in some other fashion and just simply handed over as, look, I'm buying out the what would be the GNCC's share of our responsibility in USA curling, could that not also calm this? Essentially, could we write a check to make this go away? Again, we're from Washington, so and and then the third thing is, like, if it is about membership and if it is about having people pledging their support and funneling their talent and funneling their juniors and all of that towards USA curling, could it perhaps be where the membership, instead of being $34, was $0 or maybe $4 or some sort of insignificant but symbolic number, such that it would signal that the national organization is more interested in keeping members than it is in raising money? Because it does seem like it's about money, and it does seem, again, to us East Coast elitists here, that this amount of money is really small and should just go away. So the check answer would work, right? Yeah, yeah. So if they took up a collection to say this, to buy us out from having to be the enforcer of USA Curling.com, GoFundMe, blah blah blah, and everybody in the GNCC, all 7,000 of us, kicked in, let's say $34 to buy our way out from under this, couldn't we theoretically do that? So what about the free membership idea? Well, right. I mean, it's worth a try. Okay, so we will send you. No, it certainly would make sense. So I I'll tell you that in all of my time paying my membership, I don't think I have ever understood that there was an option not to be in both. Like, the communication to me is your membership includes membership in both organizations, and here's what they do. Yeah, right. No, you're good. My guess is that amongst the big clubs, you're likely to see both memberships maintained because they do want access to those things. So why not simply lower this threshold? If the rules were made by the committee or made by the board or whatever, they can be changed by the board. If what you want to do is, yeah, but if you want to change the structure, you're going to have some regional division in some way, shape, or form, whether it's for the purposes of the playdowns and dividing out who plays against who, all the way up to distributing votes. Well, okay, yeah, we had club nationals. Remember, we gave everybody COVID. Great question. So we would lose that. But theoretically, they are representing their region, right? I mean, there is a reason that the board is made up of the regional associations. I don't think I'm not doubting that at all, but I'm saying that like, should we go the should we should we go the at large route? Like, understand that I don't think people in Duluth speak for people like us in Potomac. So if we were in the, I'm not saying it is. I'm saying sort of in a general sense. There is a there is a reason. I don't know that I could point to one off the top of my head, like you don't have your code book with you, but I would say that like there is a reason that we in this country and most of Western democracy understand that there is some benefit to regional representation at a national level, whether that's in government or whether that's in governing bodies. There is a reason there. Hold on. No, no. I'm saying that if we go to the at large thing and there are a bunch of East Coast curling clubs that want to be part of USAC, how could we possibly make sure that we get enough representation in the governing body? And I will tell you that there is a necessity for regional division for all governing bodies in a national sense. There's a reason that the Final Four is a Final Four and it's not just a free for all play now, right? The NCAA has to divide it up by region. They get it wrong half the time. Right, but they it's in theory geographically is what I'm saying. They are dividing it up. So we But how would we know that? I mean, it would have to. And we know what that feels like. So well, it may be one of those things where the past isn't it it may be one of those things where the past isn't necessarily indicative of the future. If in the past USA Curling has acted in a fair and reasonable way in a national level vis-a-vis all of the regions because it is made of the regional associations, were it freed from that structure and more based on an at-large system, there is a potential. I'm not saying it would happen, but there is a potential for the places like the upper Midwest to steamroll the places that have less numbers like the East Coast. I'm not saying it's going to happen. No, it's just sort of funny. This is a comedy show theoretically. Oh, and I love Minneapolis, no question about that. Um, the question that I mean, really, where we're going to go with this is how can this get resolved? What is the mechanism for resolution? Should this get to some? Is there some arbitration clause? Is yeah? Is there? Can this go to a member vote? What's the deal there? Well, we don't know, but we just want to know whether we can. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, Dean, we don't really want to break up here, right? We all want to stay together. Yeah, we've been talking to them too. So we are trying to work this out. And I have brokered peace on my show many times. We managed to get the only baseball team to come on and drop their lawsuit against the onlyfans.com t-shirt. So we understand where this goes. So would you, and this you can just defer or no comment this question if you want, but I'll ask you point blank: do you think that the GNCC essentially instigated their own exit from USA Curling? Fair. Okay, we'll take that. That does get back to the measure from the top sort of feeling. Just to say, that does seem. I mean, it does seem like a very difficult impasse. I can understand the position of uh, the governing body, the national governing body, saying, "Look, if you want to be a part of us and act with us and be involved in the decision making, you need to play by our rules." That's essentially the argument. And I can also understand, and I can also understand the GNCC's position of, we want to be part of the whole governing thing and grow curling as a nation, but we don't want to be your enforcer. And the question then really gets to, could USA Curling gain this 95% or whatever threshold they're willing to get comfortable with participation simply by means of competing for it? Could they offer enough things, resources, trainings, access, bonspiels, whatever, that make it attractive enough that all the clubs would want to join? I mean, I think that supposing a second organization, not saying which one, Wisconsin, decides also to pursue a similar tact and bails. I mean, suppose it happens. So if you're prepared to do it then, why not be prepared to do it now? We've tossed a number of people out of Potomac, just saying. Uh, which is where I want to sort of wrap this up, which is to say, given this dust up, which I do believe will eventually get settled, I think that the interests of everybody involved are so heavily aligned in growing curling and making it ubiquitous and accessible that they will eventually come to some terms. What they are, I don't know. But I think that, yeah, the spirit of curling dictates that this will get settled over a pint or draw to the button and everybody will be fine with it. And like, let's eat. That's the what I would speak to, and I haven't entered into this yet, but you and I have talked, offline about this, but I've got kids who are going to be going into juniors, and I'm hoping anyway that they stay interested, and that I'm going to need that access. So it is worth it to me to stay involved, and not to mention, of course, I support the sport and I want to see it grow. And I don't imagine the GNCC is going to get curling to happen in Hawaii, so I think we're going to need the national organization to get that kind of thing to go. But uh, I'm interested in it. But Stacy, you have some experience with how like club nationals went, and maybe you could give a more definitive answer to Dean's very good question. Yep. That's right. Well, we'll. That's true. Beat mine too. Can I ask? Can I ask two indelicate questions? The first is, if you are now making all of these efforts, saying, look, we've got all new management and everything in place, we understand that some of these needs have not been met, and we're trying to yeah, why make such a drastic change while you're also trying to gain that goodwill? Wouldn't it have made more sense to get the new people in place, establish the goodwill, and show the national press? No, I mean, I understand that that does feel a little rough. My second indelicate question is, if we are working on diversity and DEI stuff, would losing the East Coast and basically being left with the Upper Midwest make that a little bit more challenging? I don't mean, I don't know how else to put that. So what I'm hearing is I need to start my own region within my micronation in my backyard, and then see if I can get a seat. Oh, okay. Yeah, Michigan guy, not thrilled with that either. But it means I get to see Michigan kick the shit out of the Terps every other year here without having to travel. So that's fine. Right. Oh no, we know all about nonprofits and raising money. Remember, we are from Washington. Well, all right. So that I think that's a good way to sort of end it, and it does very much highlight the spirit of curling aspect. That here we are in the midst of what is essentially the curling civil war, and our main interest is how can we get back together so we can, you know, curl and hang out. Really, I mean, isn't that what we're all here for? Well, I'm not electing anything. You and I are still going to be buddies. Don't. Here's the deal. If we can, Stacy, you and I often have a lot of control over food and beer, so I think we have a lot more influence than people think. Who doesn't? Look at look at what you got us. What are you talking about? Come on, we're great. I don't think there's any argument about that. People understand the value of USA curling. But anyway, maybe what you need is a PR team. It's not so much the message. Well, a better one. I don't know. Talk to the folks who run Wendy's Twitter. They're amazing. Okay. So anyway, you definitely got it. All right. So Dean, let's do this. Send me the links for how people can, get signed up for your online stuff and for anything that you have coming up available. We'll publish those along with this episode so that everybody can get a chance to get in contact and sign up and learn, get your brushing technique at sweeping for the rest of us, and just sort of enjoy curling, because really at the heart of this, that's what we're all really here for, is it not? We understand, and also combative for curling is pretty mild. Yeah, yeah. Well, we appreciate you coming on and being that bit of that communication, because it is helping to bridge some of these gaps. And we really, really appreciate you taking the time, because it is important for all of us and for everybody outside of the curling world to have some idea what the hell we're all jazzed up about over here on the ice. We are an enthusiastic bunch. Okay, Dean, thank you so much for joining us on this weird episode of Chip Chat. We will get it out and send you the stuff. I can't wait till I get to come on whole spiel and talk about what I'm actually good at making fun of, which is the news. Maybe, I don't know, if you need a wisecrack or two about, I don't know, insert bad politician here. Excellent. All right, great. We'll talk to you offline, I guess, about all that other stuff you want to tell me. We won't publish any of that, though, I promise. Okay, you've been listening to a weird episode of Chip Chat, not here on Ripped Radio Network.